I'm Steve Broff from southeastern Pennsylvania, and I'm a third generation farmer. My grandfather grew a few cover crops, so I'm told. My dad grew a few cover crops, and in 1982, we had erosion problems on our hilly land, and I started no-till. It was a new concept for us at the time. That's over 40 years ago, and that journey has led me to today. We're really trying to grow food as medicine. Never in my wildest dreams that I realized that that's kind of where I would be. And, who knows where I'll be in the next 20 years. One of the things in my journey is I'm always curious. I'm trying to learn about, what's the best techniques in farming. And I've traveled around, and I've been to North Dakota a couple times, and I have learned things from the Menoken farm and some of the North Dakota farmers. So you might wonder, why is someone from Pennsylvania here in North Dakota? I would just say my story, to share my story, my journey. Hopefully I want it to be inspiring for other farmers, because I'm not here to tell people how to farm. If I would move here, I would be tapping into the local farmers to figure out how to work and operate in this climate and so forth. But there's principles that we're aware of that work anywhere in the world. And that's what we're here to talk about, and as we learn together. But I really believe the future is paying more attention to the nutritional density of the feed or the food that we are growing, and that will then cause us to farm in an environmentally responsible manner, and I feel a profitable manner. So that's why I feel that as we look to the future with what we call regenerative agriculture now, that we need to be looking at the quality of our food. And that's really one of the messages that I want to bring this time here at the Menoken Farm.
My name is Lance Gartner. I ranch with my family at Glenollen, halfway between Dickinson and Bismarck. We were conventional for many years. We started transitioning into regenerative ag 20 years ago now almost, and it's been a slow transition. We've done everything from no-till to cover crops to cross fencing, and now we're just enjoying in the process putting everything back to grass and enjoying the cattle.
My name's Blake Benson. I'm from Ontario, Canada. Where I live, I'm about an hour east of Detroit, Michigan, straight north of Cleveland, Ohio, across Lake Erie. And so I'm a fifth generation farmer. We've been using no-till farming practices since the 80s. I say we, my dad, my two uncles, and they started in about 1983. And when I came home from university in the 90s, I guess I didn't have to tell them about no-till because we were already doing it. And what I've sort of brought to the farm is the use of these big diverse cover crops, these multi-species cover crops that a lot of the people here are familiar with now. It's becoming more and more commonplace. But in my geography, sadly, I'm still seen as the fly in the ointment, right? The hair tick, as it were. There's still a lot of traditional tillage methodologies that are used on the landscape. The moldboard plow, unfortunately, is still alive and well. But for ourselves, we're just continuing down the path of doing what it is that we do as it pertains to soil and soil health, and trying to remain as a financially viable business.
I certainly appreciate the opportunity, these guys having them around today. What a resource. You can tell their passion, their desire, their knowledge. It just blows me away. Makes it really easy to be out there, and I think the producers appreciated it, and that the discussion this morning, you wake up thinking that you're going to talk about so-and-so and such, and then of course something totally else happens, and I told somebody, I'm like, I had no damn idea that would even come up, but it did, and I'm glad it did, and I don't even know what it was, but or I couldn't remember right now. I do a lot of reflecting, driving back and forth. Many of you, you drove by part of Oswald Ranch as you went by Saman's, but I've commuted a lot of miles over the years and had a lot of thoughts. But appreciate you guys being with us today. We couldn't have done better as a team to pick out the three individuals that we had, and so glad that you're able to be with us tonight and throughout the day. At this time, I think we're gonna have each of them talk a little bit about what they think, what they saw, and Steve Groff wanted to go first because he said that he's number one.
No.
And no, I just made that up. And you know, who's gonna back cleanup with a group like this? It was a tough pick, but I just picked Steve to go first.
Thank you.
And then we'll hear from Lance, and then Blake can have the last shot at it. So with that, welcome back, Steve.
Thank you.
For us.
Hey, thank you, Daryl. Thank you for your hospitality, Jay and Kathy, for providing a nice dinner last evening. Appreciated that. And I would just like to say that for those of you from North Dakota, from this area, just, you know, sometimes we all feel in our own locations that, well, we're just a few group of people trying to do some crazy stuff. But I want to tell you that your influence is affecting the world. And you know the Menoken Farm, a lot of people want to come here. It's almost like a pilgrimage. And so I appreciate the first time I heard about it was my first time to Bismarck, I think in 2006 or 7, something like that, Jay. And I think that was just the concept. It was just starting to develop. What I want to say right now on that, you know, Jay, since he's the, you know, self-proclaimed old man for this here, is that, and I share with a few of you right now in Pennsylvania, we are in discussions to talk about some sort of a research farm, some sort of a research entity to test some of these things, to test some of the things like the IMOS concept that you guys are doing on farms. We want to, our vision is to do this on farms. So I will just say this, it's kind of ironic, just well, last week in our conversations, the Menoken Farm was brought up. How does that work? And could we deploy some of that stuff there? So you are affecting literally people around the nation. And so I just say thank you for that, for all that you guys are doing here. Just some observations today. I just love seeing, you know, different parts of the country and these beautiful sunflower fields. We just don't get to see them in Pennsylvania. So that's really cool to see, but to see the soil. And I think one of the most dramatic things, not all of you maybe saw it, but with all due respect, when we were at the wheat field and saw the one side of the road, we'll just say regeneratively farmed, and the other side of the road not, and just to see the dramatic difference in the soil, it's the management. Now we have a lot of things we like to talk about with, you know, how we do that and the tools we use, and that's all good. But when you see it, when you actually experience it, that is what really brings it home. I know there's times when our kids were younger, you know, we frequently have, you know, thunderstorms that come up in the summer, and you might have a downpour, and a lot of times it would be like just about over. Okay, kids, let's go. We get in our Suburban, we go out with a video camera, and we'd film clean water running off our fields. And there's a few other farms in the neighborhood where it was dirty water. And just to see what management does is really important. One of the things I would like to challenge us on here, and it's nothing that I felt concerned about today, but this is a challenge that I'm asking myself, is in regenerative agriculture, we like to talk about reducing inputs to grow our crops. And that's indeed what we're trying to do. We're going to reduce our fertilizer, we're going to reduce our pesticides, we're going to reduce all that. And I'm not knocking some of the other, we'll call it like regenerative products that are out there that could maybe, you know, kind of swoop in and fill some of the needs. But let's just be careful we're not just replacing one, you know, product with another product. Because I really think as we learn more about biology and all that it can give us as managers of this God's creation that he's given us charge over, stewardship over right now, I don't think we're going to need a lot of inputs. Now we may need, you know, transitional things, I call them, just to bridge the gap, and you know, we're really in a learning curve here. This is not going to stop. And I said earlier today, there is no finish line. there is no finish line in this journey that we're on. And I asked the question, is it too audacious to think that there could be a time when the world's food supply could be produced without any fertilizer? That seems very, very, very far out there. But I'm asking that question. How do we at least get there on certain fields that we know we've already done that on? And how can we expand that? And that's my challenge to you. I guess to put it in more practical terms, as you leave here, and I know you've been already thinking about, but as you leave this event today, what are you going to do different? What are you committing to yourself to do different in whatever your respective role is? If you're advising farmers or if you're a farmer yourself, that you have direct management on your operation, what are you going to do different? Because, yeah, it was a great day. I enjoyed everything here, enjoyed everything. But it's kind of like just the fellowship then if it hasn't changed us. So how are you different today? And what are you going to do in the next year, we'll say, to be a better farmer, to be a better steward, to grow more nutrient-dense food? That's just like we're just tapping into that. It's like I said earlier, no-till, cover crops, diversity, soil health, and regenerative agriculture. Now, food is medicine. You just mentioned this video, whatever that you put out here. The future of food. What does that look like? So as we navigate together, and it's going to take us all. There's no one person in here that's got this figured out. It is a true team effort, and I'm just inspired, to see how many people came. More than I thought, Daryl. So good for you guys who planned this. It's great. That just shows you the interest that is out there in this topic. So, not to plug myself, but I got this book up here. If you want a little bit more on my philosophy and so forth, this is not how to farm. It's not the seeding rates for cover crops. It's more of to inspire you with the stories that I have and to, where can you make a difference? That's what I want to inspire you. So thanks for inviting me again here, and I wish you all the best in your journey as you try to figure out how to make the world a better place. Thanks.
Thank you, Daryl. Wow, what a day. Thank you all for coming. It's a good day for the resource, good day for the land. Again, there was so much information today, so much good to see and inspiring to see, even for myself, because at home I get in a rut. I do things that are like, okay, yeah, we just got to do this because this is what we need to do. But yet, just like Steve said, when at the wheat field, the regenerative soil and the soil from across the road, it's like, oh yeah, that's why we do what we do. I mentioned earlier, it's all about health. It starts out with soil health. 7 years ago now, my health crashed, and I was not in a pretty place. And I'll be open and honest with you guys. I was to the point where if you would add up all the hours in a week that I was able to work, it added up to about a day and a half. The rest of that week, I sat in the bedroom and I stared at the wall. I could not make a decision. I could not pray. I was not nice to be around. It was not a pretty place. And that just kick-started my drive to find healthier animals. How to get healthier animals through healthier soil. Raising your own garden vegetables with a healthier garden soil. Food is medicine. Whether it goes through an animal or whether it comes directly from the garden. And that's what drives my passion. And days like today, when you can go out and you can see, okay, this is conventional farming soil and this is regenerative soil, and you can visually see, without even any education, you can visibly see the difference. That's inspiring. And I commend Bowers and all you guys that we stopped at today. It was just beautiful. Beautiful what you're doing. The first steps, there's always a first step. The diversity in the cover crops. What a way to kick that biology into gear and get it rolling. Diversity in your crops. just feeding that different biology and building that organic matter. It's just a beautiful inspiration to see today, and I'm glad I was able to be part of it. So thank you, Daryl, for giving me a call and having me come. I don't know if I filled Kenny Miller's shoes. It's an honor just to be my name being used in the same sentence as Kenny Miller, because he was one of my true original mentors, and it's come a long way. And I challenge. When I used to talk years ago, I used to tell everybody, I'd sit down, and the first thing I tell them is like, if you go home and incorporate everything I tell you that we do in our operation, you'll go broke so fast that your banker's head will spin. And it's true, because every farm is different. Everybody's management's a little bit different. That makes everybody's soil starting point a little bit different, or where you're at right now. And so but take something home and try to incorporate it into your operation. Try to kick that soil biology level to the next level. Kick that soil biology to that next healthier level for your own health, for whether it's mental health, physical health, whatever you have to do for your animal's health, and just enjoy the day. And that's my encouragement for you all to go home today and just try something new that you learned today, or research it a little bit further, whatever you need to do. But just like Steve said, if you go home and do nothing, you just had good fellowship today. And let this be more than just fellowship.
So 10 years ago, I was here at Menoken Farms, sitting in the cheap seats like a lot of you folks, learning about all these things called soil health. I was a Nuffield scholar, just starting my journey. And the reason I came all the way to Menoken Farms was to meet what I would refer to as one of the world's premier soil health advocates, and that's Frédéric Thomas. And in a country like France, where they do still to this day excessive amounts of tillage, because it's ripe and very ripe rather, and steeped in tradition, that the French farmer has this right, this privilege to do tillage. And here's Frédéric trying to lead the masses to do these things as it pertains to soil health with cover crop. So I came here to meet Frédéric because he had a big busload of French farmers from France. And so I can remember here behind me on the cement pad, meeting Jay Fuhrer for the first time, and Bud Davis, I think, was here that day as well. And they had the rainfall simulator that I hadn't seen before. And just being enamored. And like I said earlier in the day, I felt like that school kid again. Maybe even before being a school kid, that just those inquisitive eyes of youth that have somehow passed me by. And this year, since the spring, has been a bit of a fog, as I've lost one of my mentors, Mr. David Brandt, who's been very inspirational to so many of us in the room today. And so I've never thought or never anticipated so many years ago, a decade later, that I would be one of these guys up here in front of the room trying to inspire people to contemplate change. And that's exactly what we're trying to do today. We're just trying to contemplate people to think differently. Not to necessarily repeat or mimic what it is that some of us do or are doing, but just to try and move the ball down the field a little further than we are today. And I think that's the beauty of an audience like this, that together, collectively, we can find our people, our support mechanism, and with each other's support, we can get to the next goal much faster than trying to do it alone like those early adapters did so many years ago, because they didn't have that community, right? They didn't have that support of others, which is so critical for success. So when I look at today, I look at the people and where they are in various stages of the adoption curve, and it's fantastic, right? And I said straight away, when I look at the soil here, I got to remind myself that these are not my soils. And I'm very envious, because I will never physically have that black, rich, deep soil, because that's not where I came from. And our soil is heavy clay content, and if we don't manage it, it actually looks more like that asphalt or that concrete than it does the soil that so many of us are familiar with today that we saw. And so with careful management by the use of no-till and cover crops, it has allowed me to remain financially viable. And by doing that, inevitably, I have turned a lot of people away from coming into the farm, and they're intimidated because they no longer are able to just easily sell me something without having a really good conversation, right? I'm not just a yes man. My friends, I've shared this in different stories, refer to me as Mr. Alligator when I play poker. Because I've got these little alligator arms that don't afford me the luxury of keep putting my hands back in my pocket to put more money on the table because I'm cheap or frugal or economically savvy, wise. And it just makes me realize, and it's made me realize a long time ago, that in order to stay in business, in order to be in business, you need to stay in business. And in our business, one of the key things that I can do is control my expenditures. And that is really what motivates me going forward, because by using no-till, obviously, we can reduce capital expenditure on machinery. And I refer to that as using, and then we use the biology, those living green plants, to capture that free energy of the sun, again, free, and drive those sugars down in the soil profile. And one of the hashtags that I've become famous for on Twitter is roots not iron. And that's just, again, using diversity of plants, capturing solar energy, and not doing tillage to just continually drive the system. So when we started farming years ago, and you got to think, like, our topography is flat, and our geography was covered by Carolinian hardwood forest. Probably more diversity, or as much diversity, that would rival the Brazilian rainfall forest in the Amazon. And today, it's wall to wall with a collection of monocultures on an annual basis, right? Corn, soybeans, wheat. And that's not how soils were formed. Soils were formed with a collection of living green plants. It doesn't matter where you are on this planet, but that's what continues to drive life as we know it, right? And it's not what's in the bag. And my aha moment happened when I was in Simet that I talked about, Norman Borlaug's creation in Obregon, Mexico. And I realized right there and then that day when I was in Obregon that if it's not in the jug, today's mentality, if it's not in the jug, and if it's not in the bag, and if it's not covered in shiny paint, right? That's the mentality. They're constantly after us, and if those things are what's driving the industry, that's sad, right? And if the industry has us all indoctrinated to go down this path, and that's what I find so refreshing with an audience like this, that we're willing to challenge the status quo, think differently. Some of us, over the years have had to do it because of necessity. Our farming business is no exception to that. 1983, I was 11 years of age. My dad and my two uncles were farming together. They had beans in storage. The local co-op goes bankrupt. The creditor seized their soybeans as assets of the co-op. My dad and my two uncles had to go to the spring that year trying to figure out how are we going to plant a crop. They didn't have a safety net as a grandparent or a grandmother. They're gone. They're deceased. They had the three of themselves to figure it out. Did they want to be no-tillers? No. But they figured it out. They started small, they made their mistakes, and they moved the ball down the field further. And so when I came home from university in the 90s, I didn't have to tell my dad and my uncles about this thing called no-till because I was already doing it. Where I have met with huge father-son apprehension has been the use of these big multi-species cover crops, right? And that has been due to the fact that my dad grew up in an era where it was brown and down as you no-tilled. There wasn't to be a weed in sight. And in our environment today, to this very day, farmers are allowed to consider themselves no-tillers or conservation tillage users, implementers, whatever you want to refer to it as such. And I find that very, very off-putting because truly people that are no-tilling know the difference between tillage and no-tillage. There is no gray line, there's no wiggle room. And I'm not a purist, okay? If I said earlier, if we're doing tiling and we have to remediate and fix the drain where we added a tile drain, because in our topography, we're actually at lake level. The water gets pumped up into a larger ditch and then into the river and then ultimately the lake. So we're actually using tile to manage the water table. So if we have to do something invasive like tiling, we have to do some tillage. But then once we're done that tillage pass, that's it. I don't want to go back. I don't want to do tillage again because it costs me money. But so many people are on this hamster wheel, right? They get caught chasing the fads. And as sure as I'm standing here today, ladies and gentlemen, every year since I've been a farmer and every year going forward, I will guarantee you one thing, that there will be a new tillage tool invented. And how sad is that? And they'll come up with some fancy name and they'll try to market it because you need it and because the neighbor's doing it. But I think there's a better way. It's been proven today. It's been proven by so many people in the room. So I'm just going to end there. I want to just encourage you to find your friend, find your mentor, find your person, find your people, and get started and have fun. Enjoy the ride. Thank you.